They threw her out of the kitchen like she was nothing. But she didn't fight back with words. She let her food speak. And the whole city listened. They say some women leave behind jewelry, land, legacies. I left behind a cast iron pan, a wooden spoon that smelled of cumin, and a tattered blue apron stitched by my mother. My name is Maria Delgado, and I used to own a tiny diner on the corner of 5th and Melrose. We didn't have stars or wine lists, but we had love in every bite. I ran that kitchen with these hands that chopped onions until midnight, that cleaned chicken with lime and salt like my abuela taught me, hands that raised my son, Luis. Luis grew up in the kitchen. He learned to say mama holding a rolling pin. He took his first steps between the fryers. I fed him arroz con pollo before he could spell it. He watched me cook. He watched me pray. And one day, he told me, Mama, I want to be like you. I want to cook with heart. I smiled. But I told him, no, be better. Learn the science, the art. So he did. Luis got a scholarship to culinary school. He left our small apartment for New York. Then Paris. He came back different. Cologne instead of Comin. Notebooks full of foam techniques and edible smoke. But he still kissed my cheek and called me Mi Reina. He told me he had a plan. Mama, let's turn your diner into a real restaurant. Something that could win awards. You'll still be in the kitchen. But let me redesign. Modernize. I hesitated. But his eyes, they were still my little boys. So I said yes. They tore down the checkered curtains, replaced my chalkboard menu with digital screens, painted everything black and gold. My arroz con pollo stayed. My empanadas too. But soon, I started noticing small things. My dishes weren't listed as Mama's specials anymore. They were renamed with numbers and trends. No one asked for my seasoning tips. The new sous chefs wore tall white hats and looked at my apron like it was a joke. One night, Luis walked into the back kitchen. He was nervous. He said, Mama, maybe it's time you rested. Let the younger chefs take over. He tried to smile, but I could see it in his eyes. He didn't mean rest. He meant go. I looked down. My blue apron, the one with oil stains and faded embroidery, was sitting on top of the trash bin, folded, but discarded. He had replaced me, like he replaced the wooden chairs, quietly, stylishly, completely. I didn't argue, didn't cry. I just untied the apron, laid it over my arm, and walked out. No applause, no farewell dinner, just silence, and the echo of a kitchen that no longer smelled like home. My apartment smelled like it used to, before stainless steel and Michelin dreams. Just garlic, cilantro, and stories. I started cooking again, not for reviews, not for cameras, but for neighbors. The woman downstairs who just lost her job, the widower who used to sit alone by the fountain, the kids who thought pizza was the only food that loved them back. They came for dinner. They stayed for warmth. One evening, Marisol from the community center knocked on my door. Maria, we're hosting a charity dinner for the neighborhood. Would you maybe cook? I hesitated. My heart still bore bruises. But I said yes. I cooked slow, old franid recipes, on old heat, with old love. By 7 p.m, the center was packed. They served Luis's restaurant food in gold trays, tartare, bubbles, art on a plate. Next to it sat my arroz con pollo, still steaming, still unpretty, still mine. People came for the fancy food. They came back for mine, plate after plate. I watched them close their eyes on the second bite. Some teared up. One man whispered, This tastes like Sunday at my grandmother's. They didn't ask for the recipe. They asked for hugs. And when they said, Thank you, chef, I smiled. But I wanted to say, I'm not a chef. I'm just a mother who remembers. Luis wasn't there that night, but someone filmed it. A blurry phone video of 100 people, cheering around a folding table and a woman in a tattered blue apron. It went viral, not because it was trendy, but because it was true. The next day, a reporter showed up. She asked if she could do a story, not on the restaurant, but on me. I said no, but she wrote it anyway. The taste of memory. How one mother fed a city's soul. Luis called me the next day. Mama, his voice cracked. I saw the video. I saw the article. I didn't know, but I didn't let him finish. I said, Luis, you're a good man, But you forgot one thing. Food is not made with tools. It's made with truth. He asked if I'd ever come back to the restaurant. I didn't answer, but I opened the drawer, took out my apron, and washed it gently. For the first time, not to wear it, but to remind myself. I was never thrown away. I just stepped aside, so someone would learn how much they needed me. I didn't call him, didn't ask how the restaurant was doing, but I knew, because silence travels, and I started hearing whispers. Have you been back to Mesa? The food looks amazing, but something's off. Expensive, empty. Luis tried new things, new chefs, new menus, but something wasn't right, because what they had built was a house without a heartbeat. One afternoon, he called, his voice different. Mama, he said, do you remember the first dish you taught me? I paused, then smiled. How could I forget? I said. You were 6. You burned the rice. We both laughed. A little. Then he said quietly, we had a critic last night. Big name. I listened. He said the food was clever, but cold. Said it looked like a painting but tasted like a memory. Missing. There was a pause. Then he added. He asked, where is your mother? Sam. That's when I knew. He missed more than just my recipes. He missed the fire. Not the flame on the stove. The fire inside. The kind you can't teach at school. The kind that lives in a mother's bones. I didn't say much. Just whispered. I'm still here. Luis. And for the first time in a long time. He didn't sound like a chef. He sounded like my son. The next morning, he knocked on my door. Not called. Knocked. Like he used to when he scraped his knee. Or broke my only mixing bowl. I opened the door. He looked tired. Not in his eyes. But in his soul. He held something in his hands. Folded. Familiar. My apron. Clean. Pressed. Still faded. He said nothing. Just held it out like an offering. Mama, he whispered. We have an anniversary dinner next week. Full house. Press coming. Regulars too. They're expecting something special. I nodded slowly. He added, almost shy, I don't want you back full time. I just need your hands for this one. But I knew it wasn't my hands he missed. It was my rhythm, my breath in the kitchen, my presence in the walls, the invisible thing that makes people feel full, even before they eat. I didn't answer him right away. Instead, I took the apron, tied it around my waist. The knot remembered me. So did my fingers. And when I stepped back into that kitchen, every pot, every pan, every corner that once forgot me, remembered too. I didn't bark orders, didn't rewrite menus. I simply opened my notebook, the one with handwritten recipes, grease-stained pages, my mother's notes in the margins. I told them we would cook the way we used to, slow, layered, with feeling. Luis watched me, not like a boss, like a student. And for the first time in a long time, the kitchen felt alive again. The night of the anniversary dinner came. White tablecloths, candlelight, cameras in the corners. Luis looked sharp in his new suit. I wore black, but my apron was blue, always blue. Chefs buzzed like bees. Sous chef plated like surgeons. Hosts rehearsed greetings. I stood near the stove, calm, steady, not nervous, hungry to feed, something deeper. The first course went out, sweet corn soup with roasted poblano. Second, braised short ribs over cilantro, rice, my mother's recipe. Then came the main. I watched from the kitchen window. A woman took her first bite. She froze, closed her eyes. Then slowly, she smiled. Across the room, a man wiped a tear. Another clutched his chest, not in pain, but as if something long buried had surfaced. No one spoke, not because the food was bad, but because it said too much. I didn't step out, didn't wave or bow. I let the dishes speak, and they did, louder than interviews, softer than forgiveness. They told stories of women with tired hands, of kitchens that healed, of love that never demanded attention, but always showed up hot and on time. At the end of the night, a critic approached the pass window. He didn't ask for the recipe. He said, "Whoever made that chicken has lived through something." I smiled, then walked away, back to my corner, back to my pan, because the applause didn't matter. What mattered was that I had spoken, without a microphone, without revenge, only with flavor. And finally, they listened. The next morning, I found Luis sitting at the kitchen island. He looked like a boy again, sleepy-eyed, quiet, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold. He looked at me. "Mama," he said. "I've never seen people eat like that." I didn't answer. I just kept stirring the beans on the stove. He continued. "They didn't talk. They felt. They tasted history." Then his voice broke. "They tasted you." I turned, wiped my hands on my apron. He stood up, stepped closer. "I want you back. Not just for events. I want this place to have you again." I smiled. Not a soft smile. Not sad. A full one. The kind only women who've lost and found themselves again can wear. "Luis," I said. "I never left." He blinked. "This place," I continued, "was built on my bones, on my recipes, on my sweat." I placed my hand on the counter. "But I won't come back to be used when things fall apart. I'll come back only when I'm seen, truly seen." He nodded slowly. "But I do see you." I shook my head. "No, Mijo, you saw the results, the applause. But did you see the woman? When she stood outside that night, holding her apron like a funeral cloth. Silence. Then, I took off the apron again, folded it, placed it in his hands. "Keep it. Let it remind you, not of me, but of where you came from." Then I walked to the back door. "Before I left," I said, "when you're ready to build something that feeds more than just mouths, call me. Until then, cook with heart. Or don't cook at all." I didn't plan to teach. I just wanted to cook. But word spreads. It always does when love is the main ingredient. It started with one class at the community center, cooking from the soul. They called it, not my idea, but it stuck. 5 women showed up the first night. One had never held a knife. Another came just to escape her silence at home. We didn't talk about technique. We talked about grandmothers, smells from our childhoods, what it felt like to feed someone who never said thank you but always came back for more. We cried. Then we chopped onions. Every week, more people came. Men who had lost wives. Teens kicked out for loving the wrong person. Single moms with kids who only knew fast food. We cooked. Together. Not to impress. To remember. To forgive. The local paper came. Took photos. One of me laughing over spilled flour. Another of a young man serving his first homemade tortilla. The headline read, "She was pushed out of a restaurant, now she's feeding a city." I didn't want the spotlight, but I let it shine. Not for me. For every woman who had been told, "You're too old. You're out of touch. You're just a mom." I was all of those things. And still, I was enough. One day, a teenage girl stayed after class. She looked at me with big brown eyes and said, "Miss Maria, do you think I can be a chef too?" I bent down, held her hand. "No, Mija," I said. "You already are. You just haven't fed the right people yet." She smiled. And in that moment, I knew I didn't need my name on a building. I didn't need a white coat. I just needed to be what I'd always been. A fire, not the kind that burns, the kind that warms. One Thursday evening, I looked up from the cutting board, and there he was, Luis, standing at the back of the room. No suit, no camera crew, just jeans, a notebook in his hand. He didn't say a word, didn't ask for attention. He sat between a teenage girl and a retired nurse. I kept teaching. No introductions, no drama, just garlic, cilantro, and the sound of 30 knives moving in rhythm. He followed along, clumsy, but focused. He peeled plantains too thick, burned the first batch of beans. But I didn't correct him. Not yet. Halfway through the class, I walked up behind him. Gently, I placed something on the table, a folded blue apron, old, stitched, still stained from a lifetime ago. He looked up, eyes wide, not with pride, but with regret and something else. Hope. I didn't say a word, just nodded. He took the apron, unfolded it, and tied it around his waist. Slow, careful, like he was finally ready to wear something he thought he had outgrown. He stayed after class, helped clean, didn't try to lead, didn't talk about the restaurant. Before he left, he asked softly, "Mama, can I come back next week?" I didn't answer with words. I just handed him a grocery list, and for the first time, he smiled like a boy again. Not a chef, not a businessman, just my son, wearing my apron and learning what it really means to feed someone. Weeks passed. Luis kept showing up to class, never missed one. He didn't just chop and stir. He listened. He asked about childhood flavors, why I used lime on chicken, what abuela used to do when the rice came out sticky. One night, after class, he stayed behind. He looked nervous, but this time, not with guilt, with hope. Mama, he said, I've been working on something, not a new menu, a new purpose. He took out a folder, inside blueprints, not for a bigger restaurant, for a different one. Same name, same location, but the heart, completely different. He said, I want Mesa to be more than a place that serves food. I want it to be a place where stories are cooked, where grandmothers can teach, where single dads can learn how to feed their kids with dignity, where food doesn't just impress, it heals. I was quiet. He turned the last page. There it was. A new kitchen space. Right in the center of the dining area. Open. No walls. No head chef. And in the middle, a small stove, with a wooden prep table. Next to it, a hook. For one item only. He looked at me. That hook is for your apron. Mama. Not framed. Not in a shadow box. But ready. Always waiting. In use. I didn't cry, but something loosened inside me. I reached out, touched the page, and whispered, Now, you're cooking with heart. He smiled, and for once, neither of us felt like the teacher. We were just two cooks, finally understanding that food isn't just about who makes it, it's about why. The night Mesa reopened, the line wrapped around the block. No celebrity guests, no fireworks, just families, neighbors, faces I'd fed long before Yelp ever existed. Inside, the lights were warm, not too bright, not too dim, just enough to see people's eyes. The walls had changed. Old photos now hung near the entrance. Candid shots of home kitchens. Abuelas cooking barefoot. Little hands learning how to stir. Luis stood at the door, greeting everyone, not with welcome to Mesa, but with welcome home. At the center of the room, the new open kitchen gleamed, not with chrome, but with life. And there it was. My apron, enter, hung with care, a little crooked, just like always. I stepped behind the counter. No one announced me. No microphone, no spotlight, just me and my ladle. The first dish I served was to a young man in a faded hoodie. He looked nervous, said he'd never eaten anything his mom made from scratch. I handed him a bowl of arroz con pollo. He took one bite, then closed his eyes, whispered, It tastes like someone didn't forget me. I smiled, because I hadn't. All night, people passed their plates, but they also passed stories. A teacher shared about losing her sister. A father talked about his addiction and how cooking saved him. Mesa had become more than a restaurant. It was a table, for those who never had one. Luis stood beside me at the stove. We didn't speak much, didn't need to. At the end of the night, he turned to me and said, Mama, thank you for coming back. I looked around, at the faces, at the warmth, at the laughter rising like steam from the pots. Then I said, I never left. Me, Joe. I was just waiting for the fire to find its way home.